So a question I get from people, particularly when they're new, obviously, particularly when they're new, is which is better, gold or silver? And I've addressed this before, but I get new ideas and new analogies and reasons to explain the difference between the two as I learn and as I talk to people. So I'd like to bring that kind of up to date right now and talk about what I'm presenting to people in the industry currently, because it is changing, it's dynamic, it is moving. Now, generally, gold and silver tend to move together. If you'll take a chart and watch price movements, they generally tend to move together. They deviate occasionally. So, in that regard, in terms of returns, they're generally the same. Now, silver is more volatile than gold. It tends to spike higher and lower. If gold drops 4%, silver might drop 8%. By contrast, if gold goes up 4%, silver often goes up 8%. For example, in 2008, when the stock market collapsed, it took gold and silver with it. And it will again this time if the stock market goes down, which we all predict that it's probably going to. So expect that. Expect that those of you that are holding silver right now or gold or getting ready to buy it, don't be surprised if it has a drawdown. Now, what happened was gold went down about 30% in '08 and recovered about 80. Silver went down 50% more, again, more volatile, but volatile on the upside, it recovered 500. Okay, so that is the difference in dynamics between gold and silver. Now, beyond that, as far as market forces, the fact of the matter is gold is not near as useful as silver is. The majority of gold is held in central bank vaults or in jewelry, and the stuff in central bank vaults just sits there and acts as a store of value. So not very useful for anything other than that. And so silver, on the other hand, has about 60,000 plus uses in manufacturing. All the electronics, like the computer I'm using, would not function without silver. And there's really no substitute for silver. Another thing that I often talk about to people getting into the silver dynamics, and the reason I'm going to focus on silver a lot here is because to counter the narrative that most people focus on gold. Now, there's a reason why when we talk about precious metals, most people you listen to will talk about gold, 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 because gold is a bigger market and can absorb more capital. So the people that are the people talking in the financial industry tend to be the more financially intelligent, and so they rely on the market that they most use, which is gold. But if you ask one of them and you stop them in mid-sentence and say, "You mean silver too?" They'll go, "Oh, yeah, 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 we mean silver too. Silver's great." But just so you know, when you're out there and you're hearing the talk about precious metals, you'll hear about gold. So we get a lot of people coming in, asking about gold. And so what I do is typically I'll tell them, the benefits and the sort of the industry dynamics of both. I'm not giving advice to anybody. We can't give advice. So all we can do is talk about industry dynamics and numbers and things like that. And people will make their own decisions. So what I often do is I'll say, well, gold, like I just said, is most of it is held in central bank vaults and in jewelry. Silver, on the other hand, is useful. So we go through some of that, and then I'll talk about like the supply dynamics of silver. Silver is very rare, much more rare in a sense. Like there is more of it than gold, but it's more rare in a sense that we're throwing it away. Like there's just not a high enough silver price right now for people to be able to recycle it out of cell phones and electronics and TVs, wherever it's embedded in circuit boards and different things like that. The chemicals that are necessary to dissolve the silver and break it down cost more than the silver that's recovered. So there's just no way that anybody can profitably recover all the silver that we're just throwing away every day. So that's an issue. Now, 80% of the mine supply, we mine about 850 million ounces of silver a year. 80% of that supply comes, as I just say, as an accident. It's a byproduct of mining copper, zinc, lead, and gold, right? So when these large mining outfits like, say, Rio Tinto, that mines a lot of copper, find silver, they simply pile the aggregate up and they sell it to streaming companies that will come in on site and set up a small operation to mill the silver and bring it to market. So there's no control dial on that. There's just no way to tell these companies, look, we need more silver. Well, sorry, you get what you get. We pile it up over there, take it or leave it. And so it is a take it or leave it type of scenario. And even the silver only mines, which are rare, 20%, are, because they're operating, number one, at such a close base cost to the profit that they can make. There are rare exceptions that have very large, per gram per ton or ounce per ton deposits that are more profitable in terms of just having easier access. They don't have to ball mill as much aggregate in order to get the silver, so their costs are lower, so they're profitable. But some are operating right near the cost at the spot price right now, and that's kind of a dangerous place for them to be. And some end up having to shut down because they will often run at a loss, mines, because it costs more to shut them down, mothball them, and then have to rehabilitate the mine later on. A lot of the equipment goes into fallow and it costs a lot of money to repair. So sometimes they're better to lose money operating these mines for a while at a loss, hoping that the market will recover. But that's been a while for silver. So there's a lot of pressures on silver right now. And on top of that, you have the Bank of India, the Central Bank of India, buying it. I think they've bought 400 million ounces now. And the Chinese government, that's now experiencing the beginnings of a really bad recession, and people are kind of freaking out over there. There's a gold renaissance, like gold sales is up 4 or 5 times. And the government is actually recommending people buy silver, and I think they may be buying it themselves. So that's another dynamic pressure on the silver market, which is, as I said, a limited market. Now, all that being said, there's just no provision there for anybody to turn up the silver dial and increase the amount in any serious way. So what's going to happen when, for example, a couple of major Chinese manufacturers can't get silver one day and they have to send 10,000 employees home because they can't make anything? They need the circuit boards. This is not going to be tolerated by a company that's a manufacturing, a country that's a manufacturing giant. They're simply going to have to break, break tradition and offer more for the silver. And I predicted this would start to happen several years ago. I said, due to these supply dynamics that I'm explaining, I just don't see how it's going to be tolerated by anybody in the manufacturing sector to put up with silver not being available. It's a critical resource. And so the natural common sense reaction to that would be to offer a higher price than the market price. And this is already beginning in earnest, because right now there's an arbitrage between the Shanghai. The last time I looked, I think it was $3.80 an ounce US, that the Shanghai was paying higher for silver than we're paying over here at the spot price delivered to the West. So this trend is beginning. Now, I think that may actually get to an emergency level. In fact, I was watching a fellow, a Chinese manufacturer of 1,000-ounce bars. I think they said they do like 160,000 ounces a day or something like that for industry. And they said that they lost 8% last year on their balance sheet. So how long before investors in that company are going to balk and say, hey, this is not good? I don't think it's going to be a lot longer when a company that is in an industry that's trending right now in silver is losing money. So there's something rotten in that whole scenario. And I think once that works its way out and we start to hit a real critical shortage, you're going to see some real fireworks in the silver market. And this will be a good thing, because silver has been suppressed. There's a lot of debate about that, but in my mind, the debate is done. Listen to guys or read articles by guys like Ted Butler, and you can tune into Bix Weir at Road to Route A dot whatever. No, it's Road to Route on YouTube, and Bix goes over a lot of the same ideas that Ted Butler research talks about. Ted's one of the frontline guys who's been going after the naked shorting in the silver market for years and pointing out, the criminality of that, so to speak. And he doesn't go on camera very often, Ted, but he's a core researcher and really knows his stuff. So that's another dynamic that's happening in the industry, is the price suppression, which we're kind of hoping eventually will break out. People that are dyed-in-the-wool silver investors like myself and others that know about this are expecting that at some point there's going to be an end to this manipulation of the silver price, and it's going to have a big breakout and probably show some speculative gains in the silver market eventually. So you have all of these dynamics working in this, and I could go on. There's a bunch of others, but I won't get too deep into it. Just suffice it to say, for those who are trying to make a choice here about silver and gold, often when I talk about these dynamics of the silver industry, you'll have a person standing there that was ready to do all gold. And oftentimes by the time I'm done, they're ready to go 50% into silver. So I say this here, hoping that it can reach more people. And those of you that are thinking along these lines and asking this question can get this question sort of answered for you and give you some things to think about and to chew on. before you make a decision of what you're going to do first. Because there's a lot of new buyers in the market. People are hearing about the economic devastation out there and starting to look closer at things they may not have looked at before, looking at the scenarios that might be coming up and coming, and they're starting to notice this conversation about precious metals now, because this is very common at times in economic cycles like this, that precious metals become a thing that gets talked about, because precious metals are not talked about that much generally. I've said here before that like less than 1 in 200 people are precious metals owners. So that's not right. I've said that before. That's got to change. I think the world would be a better place if more people held gold and silver. And I've said this before, and it's going to sound goofy and spiritual in a way, but silver and gold will actually change you. The first time you hold a gold coin, a 1 ounce gold coin in your hand, it will change something about you. I can't explain it. It's almost intangible, just the feeling of a gold coin. And I know that sounds like voodoo nonsense and woo woo and all that stuff, but it really does change you a little bit in that regard. But the other thing that I say that often changes people about owning precious metals is that most people, there's just not enough information, and people like me talking at rudimentary level about it. And so a lot of people come into it sort of on a bit of faith. They hear the conversation about it. They're willing to investigate alternatives to finances that other people may not, and they often come in with still a little bit of trepidation on them before they. So my point is that people are often buying on a little bit of faith initially. So the way to eliminate those, the things that come along with just buying on faith like that, can often be misguided in the long run. So what it forces people to do is it forces them to become a student of precious metals. And that's why I do what I do here. I continually talk about precious metals, not only for new people, but to help reinforce those that have bought it, reinforce their decision, their good decision to buy it, and to try to hang on to it as long as they can. We're experiencing a lot of people aren't able to do that right now. Some people, because of inflation, are having to sell off part of their stack of silver and gold, and most are very disappointed about that. And I can understand. I sympathize. But I try to do these talks and not only help new people with their concerns, but also to reinforce for people to hang on, because I think there's going to be uh, it's going to be worthwhile to wait and hold on as long as you can, if that's possible. And I know people are struggling. There's a lot of people having to sell right now, and that's unfortunate. But my attitude is, at least you had it, and now you don't have to look for an alternative or go into debt. It's debt settlement. Gold and silver are debt settlement, always have been debt settlement, and that's a good thing, because now you don't have that hanging over you. At least you've resolved the situation and it's over. So these are all positive things to reinforce about gold and silver. And as I say, the message also with this is, keep learning about the markets, keep learning facts about gold and silver, keep looking at reasons that it's a good investment to hang on to going forward, and a good asset going forward. And try to hold on as long as you can, folks, because I think we're going to have a breakout at some point. Most analysts believe we're going to have a pretty good speculative breakout. I've often said that price is not that relative. You'll hear me say that and say, well, Tom, you sound kind of contradictory now. You're talking about price. Price is important. I've always said it's just not the most important thing. The ounces themselves and the asset itself is the most important thing. The price attached to it, again, is only relative to what at some point down the road you're going to want to trade some of your gold and silver. It's not something you're going to hang on to forever necessarily, maybe, but in some cases you'll probably want to divest of a certain amount of it when it's reached a higher price relative to some other asset. You could trade it for land as land goes down, or housing as housing goes down, or something. You could enter into the stock market when the stock market bottoms out. I know talking about the stock market bottoming out now when it's at all-time high seems kind of contrary, but we do believe, most analysts believe, we're going to have a correction in all these different markets, stocks, bond, and real estate, which we're starting to see some of right now. So hang on as long as you can, and learn as much as you can about precious metals and all those, and it'll reinforce your good decision to stand your ground. And I know it's easy to get emotional when you see different things happening in the markets, and you hear this news or the price drops, or It's easy to get tricked into that because in doing something foolish at that time, because we are susceptible when we don't have a better frame of reference. So you've got to kind of be your own professor and teach yourself as much as you can so that your mind around the ownership of precious metals stays strong and you know why you're doing it. So like I say, a lot of people enter in on faith, and this is a journey we all have to go through because again, it's a resource that's not utilized. I mean, everybody's into real estate and talking about real estate and all that, so there's lots of support there for that conversation, and people feel good to have support about things. You're going to be on your own a little bit. So look for some good voices. If you like the stuff I say, go back and review some of the older videos, and maybe they'll hold you in good stead. And keep stacking, folks. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.